Thanks for joining us on another episode of Lincoln to Local. This week, we caught up with Steve Thompson, who shared an update on the poultry and water legislation we've been tracking all session, as well as some movement on some other pieces of legislation and a peek into the appropriations process. All right, Steve, well, a lot has happened since we've been on last, and I know our members are familiar with kind of our two big topics for this session, and one of those is the poultry bill. Can you give us kind of an update on where that bill is at?
Yeah, we're very excited to get kind of near the finish line with these discussions over helping our poultry growers be able to continue to produce in the manner they're accustomed to without the threat of frivolous lawsuits. We have House Bill 4118 that is before the full Senate, and so we're looking to have it heard sometime in the next few days, and that's something we've talked about all session long that would protect poultry growers who are in compliance with their nutrient management plans through the Department of Agriculture, while still leaving open any kind of punishment for those who are not doing it the proper way. And there's a related trailer bill that is over in the House now, Senate Bill 1424, that is for any outstanding issues that get uncovered throughout this process that we need to tweak. And so it's really been a good process throughout all along. We appreciate Senator Brent Howard and his help in shepherding it through the Senate side, and Representative David Hardin on the House side to represent Senator Howard as an attorney. He's been a great advisor on all the legal aspects. And then Representative Hardin represents an area in northeast Oklahoma that has a lot of poultry growers. And so we're nearing the end of the finish line for that. And so we appreciate all the help that our members have given in trying to express to their legislators how much they like the support that they've given to this point for agriculture producers and how important it is that they see it this last step or two across the finish line. So we hope to have an update, positive update here any day with those. So we're nearing the end of a long session with that and a lot of discussions and truly a lot of education, which is what we're all here for. It's what our members do a great job with their elected officials, and we just try to connect them. I know our field reps have done a lot of that connecting this year, and so we're going to continue that conversation the next couple of weeks, and we really think by early May we may be able to have a resolution to that bill.
That's great. Okay, so for part two of the 2024 legislative session has been a lot of water bills. Can you give us an update on those?
Those have been probably more discussed even than the poultry issues, and there are still two of those bills available, one on each side of the chamber, and they both need to clear the House and Senate floor this coming week. And I think that in a couple weeks we'll probably be down to one of those bills. I think one of those might get a hearing and the other one won't. And so that will have some of the focus down to the remaining details in that one bill. We're still officially neutral as per the board's instructions, just trying to make sure that everybody's voice in agriculture in all the different regions is heard with that. I'm not sure that those bills are going to be able to be worked out to everyone's satisfaction this session, but it's caused some great discussion. I think everybody's more aware of a very critical issue than they were before. But I'm optimistic that if those don't line up in the right place, then they're not going to move forward. And I feel very comfortable that our relationship with both the authors and the leaders in the House and Senate are that if Farm Bureau is not satisfied with the direction of those won't go across the floor. But I think that we have one of those bills that will advance this next step and another one that will probably get parked beside the road, and we can focus on that one last version and probably take another lap around the state talking to all the stakeholders to see if everybody's comfortable. But I think at the end of the day that will not move forward to the governor's desk without Farm Bureau's sign off on that, and we're working very closely with the other ag groups on that. And so I think it's been a productive discussion, brought a lot of people to our office to work with on that, and I know that's something that regardless of what happens with this bill, we'll probably talk a lot about throughout our policy development process this next year on into the next legislative session. And because the water issues do not seem to be getting smaller, we're really fortunate this spring. We're in a little bit better shape rain-wise than we have been the last few years, but the importance of the water resources that we have and how we manage them will continue to be at a very high level. And so we're excited to be a part of this discussion, and I look forward to continuing that conversation with our members and the legislature.
Definitely. I know it's a big issue and complex and lots of stakeholders at the table, so it's good to see positive change on that. Kind of in the same vein, we did see some movement on some legislation on groundwater irrigation districts recently. Can you give us an update on those?
That's been an evolving issue that hasn't received a lot of attention at this point, but there's some language in one version of the big water bills that would kind of tie the two together. I know several years ago there was legislation that authorized a groundwater irrigation district that was more of a voluntary membership as a way to seek federal funding. I know in the post-COVID congressional era, we saw lots of money coming from Washington, D.C. on a variety of projects, and the idea was going to be that irrigators band together and apply for grants for technology and other positive things. That bill that is before us now has to do with making participation in those districts mandatory, which, again, if all you're doing is applying for grants, then that's not too much of an issue. But in one of the other big water bills, it ties some of the compliance and enforcement to a jointly between the Water Resources Board and these proposed new groundwater irrigation districts. And so if there's something that is going to move into the regulatory space instead of just the voluntary funding space, I think that causes everybody to have to look through a little different lens. And so that's one of the things that we're all working on and evaluating is does this meet the criteria for what these districts were originally created for? And if not, what checks and balances need to be included in there? So that's an ongoing conversation that has drawn a lot more attention because of so many of the water issues we've worked on this session.
Sure. Well, I know at the Capitol it's kind of time for a lot of the House and Senate appropriations conversations. Can you kind of give our members just like a snapshot of what's going on with those conversations over there?
You know, that this time of year, as we get into late April and early May, that seems to be a big part of the focus is because that's really the core issue that the legislature has to do every year is to figure out a way to balance the state budget and allocate out the dollars to the various agencies and entities around the state. That has typically been a very closed-door process. I know there are a few priorities that we always talk to the key leaders about making sure get included in that, but it's really a closed loop with just a few of the leaders. Well, this year, both sides have taken more of a transparent approach, and however they have each done it in their own way. And so they haven't quite lined up on how that process is going to work just yet or how the dollar figures are going to line up. And so some of that has been published, and it's made for very interesting reading, both online and in old-fashioned hard copy spreadsheets. Each of them seems to be doing it a little different. And we're excited to see how that gets negotiated out here as we get on into May. But we'll be watching very closely to a number of our priorities. I know we've talked a lot about OSU Extension and some of their modernization and things that they've needed. Still some leftover issues from the OSU Vet School, as well as a few other funding projects in regards to ag and research in the state that we're still lobbying for every day, but we haven't quite got those things inserted in the budget yet. So we'll watch that very closely and see how the House and Senate line up and what the governor weighs in on that, because he'll be the next step in that process as soon as the House and Senate seem to come to an agreement on any language.
Definitely. I know it's one thing that we haven't necessarily talked about this session so far, but we have seen some legislation move through, or some potential legislation on some invasive woody species, kind of a statewide effort there. Would you give us a kind of an update on that?
Yeah, that's been a thing that we talk about for a long time. We talk about eastern red cedars and feral hogs and how they're a problem virtually all over the state, but don't seem to be making much progress. And so there was a bill passed last session that targeted northwest Oklahoma, I believe it was the North Canadian River watershed, to have a concerted effort. The state put in a couple $1 million to work with conservation and a few other groups to really target that area to see if they made a dent in removing those unwanted woody species. We'll call them invasive species a lot of time, but largely revolving around cedar trees. Could we see more water flow in the streams and rivers there? Because we know that they use a lot of water and pose both an environmental and a fire hazard. That has been so well received to this point that other areas of the state would like to get involved with that. So there is a bill that would make that regional pilot project really a statewide program. And some of the discussion was around an additional $10 million in funding for the folks that are working together on that project. And so that's still a long ways to go throughout the process and dependent upon the overall budget picture. But I know it's a thing that producers in just about every corner corner of the state have to worry about. If you go to the Southwest, they have issues with mesquite trees, and I think both east and west, you have some cedar trouble and some other juniper species. And so we're excited that the legislature is taking up one of the things that agriculture and rural landowners have had as a problem for probably a couple of decades now.
Definitely. Well, it's good to see some progress being made there for sure. Another priority, I guess, that our members think about a lot, and it's one of our priority or legislative priorities, is initiative petition reform. And I know there's been some talk about that at the state capitol and some legislation that's moved through. Can you tell us about those a little bit?
Yeah, we've had a couple of bills this session. The one that has come up most recently had to do with people who are signing an initiative petition and how much information they have to put on there, because there's really been some questions brought into focus the last few years about challenging the legality. Are these actual registered voters in the state of Oklahoma? And to make sure that was done in a verifiable and authentic way. And there was a limited amount of data that had to be collected. And so this adds a few more data points: name, address, phone number, zip code, full legal name, first, middle, and last. Some things that way that if there is a challenge that perhaps there's something nefarious going on, that you could verify those through the voter rolls. And up to this point in time, it was really kind of impossible to verify. So adding a few more data points to the requirements, we think is really a step forward in election security in a way that is common sense and that everybody would stand by, as well as it lengthens the time period for a legal challenge on one of these. Our Farm Bureau Legal Foundation has been successful a time or two before the court system whenever there was a poorly put together or unconstitutional proposal thrown out there. But right now there's only a 10-day window after that proposal is filed that you have to challenge it. And this bill would move that to 20 days. Just create an opportunity for everybody involved in this process to give it a thorough review, compare it to the law, and have the discussions needed on how it might impact our members around the state. So we think these are small changes, but common sense changes that move us in the right direction while still preserving our right to put forward an initiative petition, because there have been times that we've been on the end that wanted to propose something. And so it still preserves that right, but maybe adds some integrity and common sense to the process.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great news and good to hear on that front. Well, Steve, I know your team has been busy over at the state capitol, and I appreciate you taking the time this week.